The storm raged that night in Atlanta, rain pounding my bungalow as my daughter-in-law Vanessa crept in at 1 a.m., her eyes glinting with greed. I'm Marla Thompson, a 64-year-old black widow, living simply to hide a fortune built in the shadows of a tech empire. She thought I was asleep, easy prey, and swung a lamp to knock me out, stealing my house keys with a smirk. But I wasn't just some frail old woman. She'd walked into a trap that would unravel her world. My story of betrayal and triumph will leave you stunned. Stick around to see how I turn the tables. If it moves you, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. Where are you watching from? And what time is it? Let's uncover the truth together. Every evening, the streetlights outside my small Atlanta bungalow flicker to life, casting a sickly yellow glow through my lace curtains. It's a quiet corner of the suburbs where the crickets hum louder than the traffic. I'm Marla Thompson, 62, a black widow who's been playing the part of a retired bookkeeper for years. My neighbors see a woman with graying hair driving a beat-up Toyota, living off a modest pension, but that's just the mask. The truth? I was the shadow CFO of Nexus Tech, a tech startup worth $15 million, built from the ground up with my late husband, Marcus. We chose this simple life to keep the vultures at bay, to shield our family from the cutthroat world of tech money. Hell, I didn't want the spotlight then, and I damn sure don't want it now. I keep my mind sharp and my body strong. Every dawn, I'm out back under the old oak tree, stretching through yoga poses as the first light kisses the dew. I eat oatmeal with fresh berries, sip green tea, and tackle crossword puzzles or financial journals to keep my brain firing on all cylinders. At 62, I'm fitter than most folks half my age, running circles around them in the park. My doctor says I've got the vitals of a woman in her 40s, and I plan to keep it that way. But lately, there's a shadow creeping into my quiet life, and it's got a name: Vanessa. Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, 38, with her peroxide blonde hair and fake smile, waltzed into my world when she married my son, Jamal. She's white, polished, the kind of woman who thinks her designer handbags make her better than folks like me. From the moment she stepped into my home 2 years ago, her eyes scanned the place like a realtor sizing up a foreclosure. "Marla, this house is so quaint," she said once, her voice dripping with pity as she touched my chipped coffee table. Quaint, my ass. I saw the greed in her eyes, the way they lingered on the deed papers I left out by mistake one day. I wasn't born yesterday. I knew she was up to something. I remember the first time she hinted at it, clear as day. It was a humid Sunday evening, the kind where the air sticks to your skin. Vanessa and Jamal came over for dinner, and I'd spent hours simmering collard greens and roasting chicken, the kitchen filled with the warm scent of spices. The dining room glowed softly under the flicker of my old candelabra, a gift from Marcus before he passed. Jamal, my pride and joy, sat quiet, his broad shoulders hunched like he was carrying the weight of the world. He's 38 now, a sales manager with dreams bigger than his paycheck. Vanessa, though, was all chatter, her manicured nails tapping the table as she sipped my iced tea. "Marla," she said, leaning forward, her green eyes glinting like a cat's. "Have you ever thought about moving to one of those senior apartments? You know, somewhere more comfortable for someone your age? Less upkeep?" Her smile was so sweet it could have rotted teeth. I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth, the chicken suddenly tasting like ash. Senior apartments? I'm out here doing sun salutations every morning, and this woman thinks I'm ready for a nursing home? "Hell, Vanessa," I said, forcing a laugh. "I'm fitter than you. I ain't going nowhere." But her words stuck, like a splinter under my skin. I saw the way she glanced at Jamal, a silent signal I couldn't quite read. My boy, who used to tell me everything, just stared at his plate, pushing greens around like a kid avoiding chores. I remembered the days when he'd run to me after school, his gap-toothed grin lighting up my world. Now, he was a stranger, caught in Vanessa's orbit. My chest ached, Not from age, but from the slow, creeping betrayal of it all. Later that night, alone in my living room, I sat in Marcus's old armchair, the leather worn smooth by years of his touch. The streetlights buzzed outside, painting shadows on the walls. I thought back to Nexus Tech, those late nights in boardrooms, outsmarting suits who underestimated me because of my skin or my gender. Marcus and I built an empire, but we chose to live small, to keep our wealth hidden. We didn't want Jamal growing up entitled, didn't want the world sniffing around our money. But now, Vanessa's voice echoed in my head, her quaint jab a warning shot. I knew she was after my house, thinking it's all I've got. She didn't know the half of it. Then came the moment that cracked something inside me. I was clearing the table after they left, the candles still flickering, when I noticed my desk drawer slightly ajar. My house deed, tucked away in a folder, had been moved. Not much, just enough for someone with my sharp eyes to notice. I stood there, heart pounding, the air thick with the scent of wax and betrayal. Vanessa had been snooping, her greedy little hands itching for what wasn't hers. Damn it, I muttered, slamming the drawer shut. She thinks I'm some old fool, but she's about to learn who she's messing with. That night, I couldn't sleep. The crickets outside sounded like a warning, and the streetlights seemed to pulse with my anger. I wasn't just Marla, the widow with the old car. I was Marla Thompson, the woman who'd outwitted corporate sharks and built a fortune. Vanessa thought she could play me, but I was already 3 steps ahead. As I stared out at the dim glow of the street, I made a promise to myself. I'd protect what was mine, no matter what it took. The rain came down in sheets that night, drumming on the tin roof of my Atlanta bungalow like a warning. I sat in Marcus's old armchair, its leather creaking under me, the dim glow of a single lamp casting shadows on the walls. My fingers traced the worn armrest where his hands used to rest after long nights plotting Nexus Tech's rise. Back then, we were a team, outsmarting slick tech bros who thought a black couple couldn't play their game. Now, at 62, I'm still sharp as a tack. Yoga at dawn, green smoothies, and financial journals keep my mind like a steel trap. But as I sat there, the memory of Vanessa's sneaky fingers on my house deed from a week ago burned hotter than the ache in my chest. Jamal, my boy, used to be my world. I'd close my eyes and see him at 10, his gap-toothed grin lighting up the backyard as he dribbled a basketball, shouting, "Mama, watch this!" He'd hug me tight, his sweaty curls pressed against my cheek. Now, at 38, he's a stranger, sitting across my dining table with Vanessa, his broad shoulders slumped like he's carrying a debt heavier than I ever knew. Vanessa, with her sharp green eyes and fake laugh, has him wrapped around her manicured finger. Last Sunday, when they came over, she barely touched my cornbread, picking at it like it was beneath her. "Marla, this place is so dated," she said, her voice sweet as poison, eyeing my chipped coffee table. Dated, my ass. I wanted to snap, "Girl, I was closing million-dollar deals while you were still in pigtails." But it was Jamal's silence that cut deepest. He just sat there, pushing peas around his plate, avoiding my eyes. The boy, who once told me everything, now acted like I was invisible. I remembered the days when he'd call me from college, spilling his dreams of being a big-shot sales manager. I'd send him care packages, slipping in extra cash from my Nexus Tech earnings, never letting on how deep our pockets ran. Marcus and I chose this simple life to keep him grounded, to protect him from the greed that circles money like vultures. But now, watching him under Vanessa's spell, I wondered if we'd protected him too much. That night, after they left, I was washing dishes, the scent of lemon soap mixing with the damp air from the open window. The rain had stopped, leaving a heavy quiet. I glanced at my desk where I'd caught Vanessa snooping last week. Something told me to check again. I dried my hands, heart thumping, and opened the drawer. My house deed was there, but the folder was flipped upside down. Someone had been in it again. "Damn it," I muttered, my voice trembling in the empty room. Vanessa wasn't just curious, she was hunting. I started noticing things. Vanessa and Jamal's visits grew more frequent, each one a performance. She'd flutter her lashes, asking, "Marla, don't you get tired keeping up this big house? At your age, you deserve a break." Her words were like needles, each one pricking my pride. I'd smile, sipping my tea, my mind racing. Thanks to my nightly meditation and those crossword puzzles, I was sharp enough to see through her. One evening, as I pretended to nap in my armchair, I caught her snapping photos of my financial papers with her phone. The click of her camera was like a gunshot in my ears. I stayed still, heart pounding, letting her think I was out cold. Then came the moment that broke something in me. It was a stormy night, the kind where the wind howls like it's morning. I was reading a financial journal, the lamp casting a warm glow over my living room, when I heard Vanessa's voice through the cracked window. She was on the phone, standing on my porch, thinking the rain would drown her words. "Mom, this old woman doesn't need a house this big," she hissed. "It's in a prime spot. We'll sell it, pay off our debts, and be set. Jamal's too soft to argue." My hands shook, the journal slipping to the floor. Debts? My boy was in trouble and he hadn't told me? Worse, Vanessa was plotting to strip me bare. I called Linda, my old friend and lawyer from Nexus Tech, the next morning. Her voice crackled through the phone, steady as ever. "Marla, we'll get proof. Nobody messes with you." As I hung up, I stood at my kitchen window, watching the sunrise paint the oak tree gold. I thought of Marcus, his deep laugh, his belief that we could outsmart anyone. "They think I'm some frail old fool," I whispered, my breath fogging the glass. "But I'm Marla Thompson, and I'm about to remind them who's in charge." I grabbed my yoga mat, my resolve hardening with each stretch. Vanessa was playing a game she didn't understand, and I was ready to flip the board. It was 1 a.m., the kind of hour where the world feels like it's holding its breath. I wasn't asleep. Years of early morning yoga had me wired to wake at the slightest creak. My living room was dark, save for the faint flicker of streetlights seeping through the curtains, painting jagged shadows on my hardwood floor. I sat in Marcus's old armchair, the leather cool against my skin, my mind replaying Vanessa's whispered phone call from a week ago. "We'll sell it, pay off our debts, and be set." My heart hadn't stopped racing since. I'd been sharpening my mind with financial journals and crosswords, keeping my body strong with kale smoothies and daily walks, but nothing could have prepared me for what came next. I heard it first, a soft scrape at the front door, like a key fumbling in the lock. My pulse spiked, but I stayed still, every nerve on edge. Thanks to my meditation habit, I kept my breathing steady, my mind clear as glass. The door creaked open, and there she was, Vanessa, her blonde hair glinting under the dim streetlight glow, her silhouette sharp against the storm's chaos. She thought I was asleep, probably tucked away in my bedroom, oblivious. Stupid old woman. I could almost hear her sneer. I stood, quiet as a shadow, my bare feet cold on the floor, and stepped into the hallway. "Vanessa," I said, my voice low but firm, "what the hell are you doing in my house?" Her head snapped up, eyes wide like a deer caught in headlights. For a split second, I saw fear. Then it hardened into something ugly. "Marla," she hissed, clutching a flashlight that cast a harsh beam across my face. "Go back to bed. This doesn't concern you." Concern me? This was my damn house. I stepped closer, my 62 years feeling like nothing against the fire in my chest. "You're breaking in, girl. That's a crime." The words came out steady, but inside, I was screaming. My own son's wife, sneaking in like a thief. I thought of Jamal, his silence at dinner, his eyes avoiding mine, and my heart cracked a little more. She moved fast, too fast. Before I could react, she grabbed the brass lamp from my coffee table, Marcus's favorite, the one we'd bought on our honeymoon in New Orleans, and swung. The blow caught my temple, a white-hot explosion of pain. I stumbled, my head smacking the edge of the table as I fell. Blood trickled warm down my cheek, pooling on the floor, the metallic scent mixing with the storm's damp musk. The world blurred and I heard her laugh, sharp and cruel, as she snatched my house keys from the sideboard. "You should have just given it up, Marla," she said, her voice fading as darkness swallowed me. I don't know how long I was out, minutes maybe. When I came to, the room was still, the storm's roar muted. My head throbbed, but my mind snapped back, sharp as ever. Years of yoga and clean living kept me grounded, even now. I touched my temple, wincing at the sticky blood, and staggered to my feet. The keys were gone, the door ajar, rain pooling on my welcome mat. But Vanessa didn't know about the cameras. I'd installed them after her snooping last month, hidden in the corners of my living room, their red lights blinking like silent sentinels. I limped to my laptop, the screen's glow harsh against my bruised face, and pulled up the footage. There she was, clear as day, swinging the lamp, grabbing the keys, laughing as she slipped out. "Got you, you little snake," I muttered, my voice hoarse but fierce. I could have called the police right then, let them haul her away. But something stopped me. This wasn't just about Vanessa. It was about Jamal, my boy, caught in her web. I remembered his face as a kid, beaming when I'd cheer at his games, and the pain of his silence now hit harder than the lamp. I called Linda instead, my lawyer friend from Nexus Tech. Her voice was a lifeline through the phone's crackle. "Marla, you okay? I'm coming over." I told her about the cameras, the keys, the blood still dripping down my neck. "We're not just turning her in," I said, my resolve hardening like steel. "We're setting a trap. She thinks she's won, but I'm about to turn her world upside down." As I hung up, I stood at the open door, rain misting my face, the streetlights casting a ghostly glow. I thought of Marcus, his deep voice telling me, "Marla, you're tougher than any boardroom shark." I wasn't just fighting for my house, I was fighting for my dignity, for the life I'd built. Vanessa thought she could break me, but she didn't know Marla Thompson. I wiped the blood from my cheek, my hands steady despite the pain. This was my home, my legacy, and I'd be damned if I let her steal it. I stood on the back porch, my yoga mat unrolled, stretching into downward dog as the morning dew kissed my bare feet. My temple still throbbed from Vanessa's attack 2 nights ago, the bruise a dull purple under my gray curls. But my mind was razor sharp. Years of green smoothies, early walks, and nightly meditation kept me steady, even now when my world felt like it was crumbling. The blood on my living room floor had dried, but the sting of betrayal, Jamal's silence, Vanessa's cold laugh as she stole my keys, burned hotter than ever. I wasn't just fighting for my house anymore. I was fighting for the Marla Thompson I'd buried to keep my family safe. Inside, the scent of lemon cleaner lingered as I scrubbed away the last traces of that night. The cameras had caught it all. Vanessa swinging Marcus's brass lamp, snatching my keys, her smirk under the streetlight's glow. I played the footage again on my laptop, the screen's harsh light cutting through the dim kitchen. Each frame fueled my resolve. "You think you're slick, girl," I muttered, my voice low, "but I've outplayed bigger sharks than you." I remembered the boardrooms at Nexus Tech, where I'd stare down smug investors who thought a black woman couldn't run the numbers. Marcus would squeeze my hand under the table, whispering, "Show 'em, Marla." Now it was Vanessa's turn to learn. I called Linda, my lawyer friend from the old days, her voice crackling through the phone like a lifeline. "Marla, we've got her on assault and attempted theft," she said, her tone all business. "But let's make this airtight." I didn't want Vanessa just arrested. I wanted her to feel the weight of her own greed. We hatched a plan, a trap as precise as any I'd set in the corporate world. Linda drafted a fake house sale contract tied to a dummy bank account I controlled, designed to lure Vanessa into signing. One wrong move and she'd be nailed for fraud. "She thinks I'm some frail old fool," I said, my hands steady despite the ache in my head. "Let's give her what she wants, then yank it away." The next day, I sat at my kitchen table, sunlight streaming through the window, glinting off my chipped coffee mug. Linda sent over the fake documents, each page a masterpiece of deception. I'd learned this game at Nexus Tech, how to play dumb while pulling strings. But my heart wasn't as steady as my hands. I kept seeing Jamal's face, his eyes avoiding mine at dinner, his silence louder than Vanessa's taunts. Digging through their finances with Linda's help, I uncovered the truth. They were drowning in $80,000 of debt. Credit cards maxed out, car payments overdue, a lifestyle built on sand. Vanessa had lied to Jamal, telling him I'd agreed to sell the house to help them out. My boy, my pride, had been played as much as I had. "Damn it, Jamal," I whispered, tears pricking my eyes. "Why didn't you come to me?" Then came the kicker. Linda got a tip from a realtor friend. Vanessa had been meeting with a shady property firm, flashing my stolen keys like a trophy. She'd even bragged to her family, her mother's voice echoing in my memory from a dinner months ago. "That black woman's got nothing but that house. It's practically ours." The racism stung, but I'd heard worse in boardrooms. It wasn't new, it was just personal now. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazily above. I remembered Marcus, his deep laugh when we'd outsmart a rival. "They underestimate us, Marla," he'd say. "That's their mistake." Vanessa's mistake was thinking I'd break. I met Linda at her office downtown, the city's skyline looming through the glass walls. Her desk was cluttered with legal pads, a stark contrast to the sleek boardrooms of my past. We fine-tuned the trap. The fake contract would go through a front company, with a clause tying Vanessa's signature to attempted fraud. I'd play the grieving mother-in-law, too shaken to notice her moves. "She'll bite," Linda said, her eyes gleaming. "Greed always does." I nodded, but my heart was heavy. I thought of Jamal at 16, helping me plant roses in the backyard, promising to make me proud. Now he was a puppet in Vanessa's game, and I had to cut the strings. As I drove home, the Atlanta sunset bled orange across the horizon, casting long shadows on my street. I stood in my living room, the spot where I'd fallen still marked by a faint stain. The cameras blinked silently, ready for what came next. "They want to play dirty?" I said aloud, my voice echoing in the empty house. "I'll show them who's boss." I wasn't just Marla, the widow with the old car. I was Marla Thompson, the woman who'd built an empire in the shadows. Vanessa thought she'd stolen my keys, but she'd just unlocked her own downfall. I stood at the head of the polished mahogany table, my gray curls catching the light, my bruised temple still tender from Vanessa's attack 5 days ago. At 62, I was no frail widow. Yoga at dawn, kale smoothies, and a mind honed by years of financial journals kept me sharper than most. But my heart? That was another story. It ached as I looked at Jamal, my son, slouched in a chair across from me, his dark eyes avoiding mine. Vanessa sat beside him, her blonde hair pulled tight, her smile smug as she adjusted her designer scarf. She thought she'd won, thought my stolen keys were her ticket to my house. She had no idea she'd walked into my trap. The room buzzed with tension, the air thick with the scent of coffee and leather. Vanessa's parents, stiff in their tailored suits, sat at the far end, their faces pinched with disdain. I'd invited them all under the guise of a family financial discussion. But this was no family meeting. This was a reckoning. Linda, my lawyer and old Nexus Tech ally, stood beside me, her folder of documents ready like a loaded gun. I remembered the boardrooms of my past, where I'd outmaneuvered corporate sharks who sneered at a black woman daring to play their game. Marcus would have grinned, saying, "Go get him, Marla." Today, I was fighting for more than a deal. I was fighting for my dignity. "Marla, what's this about?" Vanessa asked, her voice syrupy but sharp like a knife dipped in honey. "We're all busy people." Her parents nodded, her mother muttering something about wasting time. I took a deep breath, my hand steady despite the storm in my chest. "Busy stealing my house, you mean?" I said, my voice low but cutting. Vanessa's smile faltered, and Jamal's head snapped up, his brow furrowing. I nodded to Linda, who flicked on the projector. The screen lit up with grainy footage from my living room cameras, Vanessa swinging Marcus's brass lamp, my body crumpling to the floor, her cold laugh as she snatched my keys. The room went dead silent save for the hum of the air conditioning. Gasps rippled through the room. Vanessa's face drained of color, her manicured nails digging into the table. That's not what it looks like," she stammered, but her voice cracked like thin ice. I leaned forward, my eyes locked on hers. "It looks like you broke into my house, hit me, and stole my keys. You tell me what part I got wrong." Jamal's mouth opened, but no words came out. His eyes darted between me and the screen, horror dawning. I wanted to reach for him, to pull my boy back from the edge, but the truth had to come first. Linda slid the fake contract across the table, the one Vanessa had signed, thinking she'd sold my house. "This document," Linda said, her voice calm but lethal, "ties you to attempted fraud. You signed it, thinking you'd cash in on Marla's property, but it's linked to a dummy account. Every move you made is evidence." Vanessa's parents shifted, their faces paling. Her father tried to speak, but I cut him off. "And let's not forget your charming family chats," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "What was it you said, Mrs. Dawson? That black woman's got nothing but that house?" The room froze, their prejudice laid bare. Then came the bombshell. "You thought I was just a retired bookkeeper," I said, standing taller, the sunlight framing me like a spotlight. "But I'm Marla Thompson, former CFO of Nexus Tech, with a net worth of $15 million. The words hung in the air like thunder. Jamal's eyes widened, his breath catching. Vanessa let out a choked laugh, disbelieving. "That's impossible," she spat. "You live like a pauper." I smiled, cold and steady. "I live like someone who knows greed destroys everything. You proved me right." Linda laid out the rest. The $80,000 debt Vanessa and Jamal had racked up. The lies she'd fed him about my approval to sell the house. The shady realtor she'd bragged to. Jamal's face crumpled, his hands shaking as he turned to his wife. "You lied to me," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You hurt my mom." My heart twisted. There was my boy, the one I'd raised, buried under years of her manipulation. But I stayed firm. "I gave you every chance, Vanessa," I said, my voice steady despite the ache. "You chose to play dirty. Now you've lost." As police officers entered, called by Linda, Vanessa's bravado shattered. She screamed, "This is a setup!" as they cuffed her, her scarf slipping to the floor. Jamal sank to his knees, tears streaming, whispering, "Mama, I'm sorry." I wanted to hold him, but the weight of his silence held me back. "You chose her over me," I said, my voice soft but firm. The room was chaos, Vanessa's parents shouting, officers barking orders. But I stood tall, the woman who'd built an empire in the shadows, now stepping into the light. The morning breeze swept across my Atlanta bungalow's balcony, rustling the leaves of the old oak tree as I unrolled my yoga mat. The sun peeked through the branches, casting dappled light on my face, still tender from the bruise Vanessa left 2 weeks ago. At 62, I was no fragile flower. Daily yoga, green smoothies, and a mind sharpened by crossword puzzles kept me strong, my heart steady despite the cracks. But as I flowed into warrior pose, the memory of that boardroom showdown, Vanessa's pale face as the cuffs clicked, Jamal's tearful, "Mama, I'm sorry," weighed heavily. My victory felt hollow when my son's betrayal still stung like an open wound. Inside, my living room was quiet, the blood stain from that awful night scrubbed clean, though the ghost of it lingered. I sat at my kitchen table, the scent of fresh coffee mingling with the morning air, and stared at the laptop screen where Linda had sent me updates. Vanessa was out on bail, but the fraud and assault charges stuck like glue. Jamal had cut ties with her, moving out of their fancy condo, now repossessed for unpaid debts. I'd uncovered their $80,000 hole: credit cards, car loans, a lifestyle they couldn't afford. I'd wanted to save Jamal, my boy who once planted roses with me, but his silence in that boardroom, his blind trust in Vanessa, had shattered something deep. "Damn it, Jamal," I whispered, my coffee mug warm in my hands. "Why'd you let her turn you into someone I don't know?" The neighborhood buzzed with gossip. I'd hear whispers at the grocery store, folks saying I'd destroyed my family by exposing Vanessa. Their words stung, but I remembered Marcus's voice. "Marla, let him talk. You know your truth." I kept my head high, my body strong from morning walks, my mind clear from nightly meditation. Then Clara, my 45-year-old neighbor, stopped by one evening, her brown eyes soft with understanding. She'd been through her own hell. Her son had drained her savings for his business ventures. Under the dim glow of my porch light, she hugged me tight. "You did right, Marla," she said. "You stood up for yourself. Ain't nobody got the right to take that away." Her words were a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge. I needed a purpose, something bigger than this pain. Sitting on my balcony one dawn, the air crisp with the promise of fall, I made a decision. I'd use my Nexus Tech fortune, $5 million of it, to start the Marla Thompson Foundation, a lifeline for Black women breaking into tech and finance. I'd spent years in boardrooms, outsmarting men who thought I didn't belong. Now I'd help others like me, women who face the same sneers, the same doubts. Linda was all in, her legal mind already drafting plans. "This could change lives, Marla," she said over the phone, her voice crackling with excitement. I thought of the young women out there, fighting for a seat at the table, and felt a spark I hadn't felt since Marcus was alive. But Jamal haunted me. I remembered him at 16, his laugh echoing as we baked cornbread together, flour dusting his nose. Now he was crashing at a friend's place, his life unraveling. He'd called once, his voice shaky, begging to come home. "Mama, I didn't know what she was doing," he said. I wanted to believe him, but the memory of his silence, his blind loyalty to Vanessa, held me back. "I can't let you walk over me, Jamal," I told him, my voice firm but cracking. "Not anymore." I hung up, tears burning my eyes, the balcony's cool railing grounding me as I stared at the city lights twinkling below. The foundation's launch was a whirlwind. We held it at a community center, the room buzzing with young women, their eyes bright with hope. I stood at the podium, my gray curls catching the spotlight, and shared my story, not the attack, not yet, but the fight to rise above. "Nobody gets to tell you your worth," I said, my voice echoing. "Not family, not nobody." The applause was thunderous, and for the first time in weeks, I felt whole. 30 women signed up for our first scholarships, their dreams of coding and finance now within reach. Clara was there, cheering loudest, her smile a beacon in the crowd. As I drove home, the Atlanta skyline glowing against the dusk, I felt a new wind blowing through me. I wasn't just Marla, the widow who'd been attacked. I was Marla Thompson, the woman who'd built an empire and was building another, this time for others. Vanessa had tried to break me, but she'd only made me stronger. Jamal's betrayal still hurt, but I wasn't done fighting for him, or for myself. "I ain't letting nobody walk over me again," I said aloud, the words a vow as the city lights blurred past. The trap had sprung, but the real victory was just beginning. 2 years had passed since that brutal night when Vanessa's blow left a bruise on my temple and a deeper scar on my heart. At 64, I was still a force. Yoga at dawn kept my body limber, kale smoothies and daily walks fueled my energy, and nightly meditation sharpened my mind like a blade. The Marla Thompson Foundation, born from the ashes of betrayal, had become my lifeline, a beacon for Black women breaking into tech and finance. But as I gazed at the oak tree swaying in the breeze, its leaves whispering secrets, I thought of Jamal, my boy, my heart, the one I'd fought so hard to save, even from himself. The past 2 years had been a whirlwind. The foundation, funded with $5 million from my Nexus Tech fortune, had lifted over 200 women into careers they'd only dreamed of. I'd written Stand Your Ground, a book pouring out my story, not just the night Vanessa attacked me, but the years of hiding my wealth, the pain of Jamal's silence, the triumph of taking back my power. The book was a bestseller, its royalties fueling scholarships and workshops. I remembered the boardrooms of Nexus Tech, where I'd outsmarted suits who underestimated me, a Black woman with a calculator and a dream. Now I was building a new empire, one that opened doors for others. But success couldn't erase the ache of losing my son, not until he came back to me. Jamal had changed. After Vanessa's arrest, he'd hit rock bottom, evicted from their condo, drowning in debt, alone. He started working at the foundation 6 months ago, not as my son, but as a volunteer, proving himself with every spreadsheet he organized, every workshop he led. I watched him from afar, my heart torn between pride and caution. I remembered him at 10, his laughter filling our backyard as we planted roses, his small hands trusting mine. But I also remembered his silence in that boardroom, his blind faith in Vanessa as she plotted against me. "Damn it, Jamal," I'd whispered then, my heart breaking. Could I trust him again? One evening, as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across my bungalow, Jamal came to me. He stood in my living room, the same spot where I'd fallen under Vanessa's blow, his eyes red-rimmed but clear. "Mama," he said, his voice soft, "I was wrong. I let her twist me, make me forget who you raised me to be. I'm so sorry." His words hit like a tidal wave, washing over the pain I'd carried. I saw the boy I loved, the man he could still be. I stepped forward, my hands trembling, and pulled him into a hug. "Jamal, you're my blood," I said, my voice thick. "I forgive you, but you've got to prove you're better than that mistake. Every damn day." He nodded, tears falling, and for the first time in years, I felt whole. The neighborhood still whispered. Some called me ruthless for exposing Vanessa. Others praised my courage. Clara, my neighbor who'd faced her own family's greed, brought me coffee every Sunday, her smile a reminder that chosen family could be stronger than blood. I thought of Marcus, his deep laugh echoing in my memory as we'd plotted Nexus Tech's rise. "Marla, you're tougher than they know," he'd say. He was right. I'd faced Vanessa's racism, her family's sneers. That Black woman's got nothing, and come out stronger. My health, my clarity, my fire. They were my weapons, honed by years of yoga, clean eating, and a mind that never quit. Last week, I stood on a conference stage, the spotlight hot on my gray curls, sharing my story with a sea of faces, the foundation's impact. 200 women, countless dreams, lit up the room. Afterward, a letter arrived, slipped under my door like a gift. A 42-year-old woman, her words scrawled in blue ink, thanked me. "Your story gave me the strength to break free from my in-laws' control. I'm starting over, Marla, because of you." I read it on my balcony, the sunset bleeding orange across the sky, and felt tears prick my eyes. This was my legacy, not just the money, not just the house, but the lives I'd touched. As I sipped my tea, the city lights twinkling below, I knew I'd found peace. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant choosing love without losing myself. Jamal was back, but on my terms, earning his place. I was Marla Thompson, the woman who'd built an empire, lost her son, and built another to lift others up. My message to anyone listening? Betrayal can break you, but you can rise stronger. Your worth isn't what others take. It's what you build, what you protect, what you give. Stand your ground because nobody else will do it for you. And that's my story, folks. How I went from a night of betrayal to building a legacy that lifts others up. Standing on my balcony now, watching Atlanta's lights flicker, I'm reminded that no matter how deep the hurt, you can always find your strength. What about you? Have you ever had to stand your ground against someone you loved? Or maybe my fight sparked a fire in you to protect your own worth. Drop your thoughts below. I'd love to hear your stories, your struggles, your victories. Thank you for listening, for letting me share this piece of my heart. It means the world. Come back for more stories that remind us what we're made of. Until next time, keep standing strong.